I was going to go ahead and do this video, and the show must go on. So here I am. If I pause it in between the video, it's probably because I'm hacking my lungs up. Alright, so in today's video I'm going to go ahead and do a tutorial for beginning Magicka players, how to start practicing your rotation, how to effectively start working up your combos, and when to properly try to get your weaves in as effectively as possible. Now, one of the major things that I like to cover first and foremost about Magicka users versus stamina users. Stamina users have a more fluent weave rotation in between their directed effects more than Magicka users. As a Magicka user, most of the time I find myself and I find other players doing the same thing, where when we're getting towards a certain point, we like to spam them down, right? And what that ends up doing is it dramatically takes away from our resource pool, and then all of a sudden our DPS drops dramatically. It just goes flushing down because we can't cast any spells, we can't do anything because we've ran the hell out of resources. So the one thing I always want to stress to beginning players is the importance of Magicka recovery. Now, I usually like to stay between 1300 and 1500 ideally for Magicka users, even stamina users. But for Magicka users, you'll end up finding yourself, flushing out a lot faster because you're not paying attention to your pool. So Magicka recovery and stamina recovery are very important for the type of DPS you are. But for Magicka users, you want to keep an eye on your Magicka recovery. So I always tell people to try to bank between 13 and 1500 depending on the build and depending on what Mundus you're needing. Okay, and how you glyph your jewelry. It's very important, guys, first and foremost. Okay, second off, I want to go ahead and I'm using my Warden today, but like yesterday's video, it's just kind of give you a general idea of how to go ahead and set up rotation, bars, everything else. Okay, so 1 second here. Okay, like I said, I'm sick. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go to the target dummy, and I'm going to show you guys my bars. Now, on my dual bar, this is considered what I call my single rotation bar, right? So I always keep usually, now my single bar does have AoE effects. For example, I'm using the Growing Swarms, and I'm using the Deep Fissure. It's not to say that you'll only have to apply a single target on this bar. You can apply AoE effects, but on the back bar is where primarily a lot of your AoE effects are going to be placed. Why is that? Well, for two reasons. One, your dual bar is going to give you a boost to Twin Blade and Blunt if you're going to be using swords, which increases your damaging effects by 5%, right? On staff side, you can go ahead and lay down your duration and then go in your spammable. When you switch out, then you can go ahead and do your heavy attack without having to worry about the durated effects to fall off. Once again, we always want to pay attention to our duration. For example, right here, my Winter's Revenge has 12-second duration. My Unstable Wall of Storms has a 6-second duration. So when I lay the Winter's Revenge, it's going to have a longer durated time, so I don't have to reapply. Unstable Wall of Storms, though, I have to reapply 2 times in between Winter's Revenge. Same thing with the Arctic Blast. I have a 10-second duration. So I can go ahead and lay all this down once, throw down the Unstable Wall, reapply the Arctic Blast, and then go back in the Winter's Revenge. Now also, most Magicka users have some sort of utility in their bar somewhere along the lines. 1 second. Like for Nightblades, they'll use Siphoning Strikes. For Wardens, they'll use Blue Betty, and so on and so forth. It's to help with recovery, right? So majority of the time, they'll go ahead and slot something that will help them with recovery between their rotation. And that's, it's a good rule of thumb. Now, another thing to keep in mind, too, for a Magicka user is when you unlock your Mage Guild, at the bottom, you're going to get the passive Might of the Guild, which grants you Empower. Now, a lot of times, most Magicka users will use the Inner Light to cast and proc that effect. and you can do that. But preferably, I personally prefer using degen or entropy because it gives a damaging effect. It gives me the major sorcery, which increases 20%, and then I'm getting the Might of the Guild between the rotation. And then if I don't need to reapply, sometimes I'll go ahead with the Inner Light, depending on resource management, and then I'll pump it out. It's circumstantial on what I'm seeing, but most of the time I'll lay this down, get that 20-second boost, get the Might of the Guild throughout my spammable. So a lot of the times as a Magicka user, you don't want multiple spammables, even if it's accessible to you. You want one spammable, you want all derated effects, and you want to lay down properly. Also keep in mind any delayed effect like Deep Fissure. When I cast Deep Fissure, I have to wait 3 seconds for it to fire. Right? So you got to keep that in mind. But just going in for the base AoE. So let's go over AoE rotation, right? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call it the Blue Betty. It's going to give me the major sorcery, right? For 20 seconds. You can see it down there off to right beside the Blue Betty's buff. It's the major sorcery icon, the hand. Okay? Reapply. You'll see it. I got like 30 seconds almost. So as soon as I reapply this, I usually go into my AoE rotation, drop, and then I can go ahead and weave up, switch out, and then weave up. As soon as that drops, weave up. Keep the Blue Betty up. Once I see that explosion, go ahead and recast. Okay, so basically same kind of idea. We're layering the effects, right? That's something we need to always be doing. So on your walls, you're going to go ahead and see. It's pretty situated. You'll see it. You'll see the little ruffles, no matter if it's fire, ice, whatever. It'll explode. You'll see the smoke. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Anyways, you're going to see that smoke. When that smoke pops off, that lets you know. So a lot of visuals can be distracting, right? So once I go ahead and I call this out and I lay down my first effect, my second effect, the first thing I want to do is pay attention to the effect lying underneath. The ice doesn't move, but that smoke pops up, right? Visual indications are really key factors. Same thing with the Arctic Blast. It's going to go around me. I'm going to see a slight effect that's going ahead and popping that. See, it's like a smoke and then a hit. When you put that all together, you can pay attention to your visuals a lot better. Now in between your weave, you're going to see that pop, drop. That gives you the indication to drop the next effect and then the next one. Drop. See, that's what you want to practice on AoE rotation. Seeing when the effects dissipate and then reapplying them. Because if they drop off for too long, you start losing DPS. That's not worth it. A visual display is a very good indication, so you need to get accustomed to that. You need to get accustomed to what you're taking a look at and how it's affecting your rotation, especially with derated effects. Now, single target. Single target is going to be a lot different, but once again, we want to lay derated effects in between our spam. The one thing I'm always going to go ahead and tell people, make sure you're doing kind of the same thing. So basically, I'm going to call out the Betty Netch. It's going to give me this effect. I'm going to hit the Deep Fissure. I'm going to hit the Swarms. Now I'm going to hit the Degen and then go in with my Assault. Okay? And I can spam that up if I want in between. Hit Inner Light. Inner Light I don't like to because it has a little bit of slower cast. and then start working in my other effects. Okay. Now, the nice thing about the bear for wardens, it's continuous. It doesn't stop unless it dies. So once you start hitting the target, it's going to continuously hit. Right? It's a set and forget automatically. So once again on single target, I need to start working things up. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to lay down all my durated effects. I'm going to hit this. Now when I start getting about half, I want to weave up. About a quarter to a half, I want to get in a weave rotation. But as you guys can see, well, the more you're layering the effects, the more you're paying attention to when the drop off, the more you can practice it. This is really important, guys. So I always tell people, Magicka users have a little bit more easier effects when it comes to visual displays and how prominent they are compared to stamina. But stamina weave rotation is a lot more fluent, because it's easy for a Magicka user to go ahead and dump down throughout the rotation and not pay attention to recovery. And heavy attacks become very essential to do so. So I'm always telling people, and you're in between, once you drop a little bit below the half mark, you should do a heavy end attack, especially with the lightning staff if you're using a lightning staff, because on multiple mobs, multiple NPCs, it acts as an AoE effect due to the splash damage. Now the Inferno staff will give you the burning status effect or and apply it, and that will stack. But that's going to be a preference on your build and what you're trying to do. If you're basically looking at a lot of people who already have a lot of AoE effects, and you want a little bit of a single target weave between the rotation and applying that other status effect to get a little bit more boost out of your DPS, Inferno Staff is going to be prominent. For Wardens, Ice Staff is effective, but you want to keep in mind, if you're going to use Ice Staff as a DPS on a Warden, the one thing that you want to kind of go ahead and pay attention to is get rid of the passive of your Tri-Focus, because a heavy attack with a Frost Staff is going to taunt that enemy. Now, if you're going to use any other staff, you want to try focus. Why? Because the shock damage is increased, and your fully charged heavy attacks on your flame is increased. All of the damage is increased except for Frost. Frost offers shield and taunt, but because Wardens get a boost into their Winter's Embrace, which is 6%, you'd be surprised how effective the Frost Staff can be for a Magicka Warden for DPS. But once again, if you're going to use it as a DPS light attack or trying to weave up heavy to recover, you don't want that Tri-Focus. But you can do light attacks, and that would be efficient. So especially if you have enough sustain. But yeah, guys, this is one of the things, like, I'm always telling people you need to do. Now, also, consequently, you could go into the Fighters Guild, and you could also slot the Trap Beast, right, to gain the Minor Force. The problem of it is it costs stamina. As a Magicka build, currently, I'm looking at 10,000. So if I slot the Trap Beast and I apply it, a lot of times I don't have sometimes enough stamina to roll in and out of mechanics depending on what I'm doing. So Minor Force is good, but also keep in mind if you're in a trial situation and there's somebody's using, like I have a build that I run Twilight in. Once you hit a synergy from the healer, you get the Minor Force. So keep that in mind. So there's a lot of times that you can slot the Minor Force, slot the Trap Beast, get the Minor Force, and get the boost. And you can do that. So one of the main things, like I'm always telling people, take advantage as a Magicka user of getting that Might of the Guild. Whether or not you're using Inner Light or whether or not you're going to be using the degen, it's going to increase your damage significantly. And that's one of the things that you really want to get as a Magicka user. You want to get those passives unlocked. It's very important. But definitely practice. Now, especially during when I'm going to go ahead and I'm spamming up. So let's say I have all of my effects down. I can just spam the birds in between the effects. Relay. And then start up the weave. The one thing I don't want to do is just keep attacking with the birds, right? It's pointless. That's the only thing that's getting hit besides the proc and the bear. It's the only thing that's hitting, right? Then I'm getting the drop off. See, I'm only dealing 15. Go ahead and hit this, get the empower. Throw it down. Now I'm hitting 16. I'm getting almost 1,000 more. 1 second. From having that empower boost, right? Very important. Same thing. If I'm going to go ahead on single target, hit that delayed effect, hit that other buff for Might of the Mage and hit them up. Getting the delayed effects down on single target is still going to apply, guys. Okay, so a lot of it's going to be about what we call layering derated effects. Now, in other MMOs, this is a Twitch game. It's not turn-based. In turn-based MMOs, we were able to take derated effects, which we had, that also had a global cooldown. So we was able to go ahead and determine our damage, how much it was dealing per second, our GCD, and write our macros based on those variables. So we were able to go ahead and then take the spammable, if there was a spammable, not all MMOs have a spammable, and set that at the last entry into our macro. But in this game, we do not have that. So in this game, we can keep recasting continuously, guys. So that's the one thing. Now, not all classes are going to have a finisher. So I don't have a traditional finisher on here. But what I have is the bear, which is really nice. So, but sometimes the bear will die and I have to recast it. And that can dramatically affect my DPS as well. You got to take that into consideration when you're looking at ultimates and finishers. So the bear has a finisher. But if I'm going to be using the bear as a ultimate, I want to keep on this side. The reason being, he's going to deal a lot more damage. And let me go ahead and show you. So on this side, he's dealing 24,000. Now on this side, when I switch out, he's only dealing 20. Right? So when I switch out, my bear swipes in between is going to be dramatically dropped by 4,000 damage per hit. So I don't want to stay on the back bar that much. I want to go ahead, lay the derated effects as fast as possible, and then get on this bar as much as possible, as fast as I can. Hit up that heavy attack, switch out between his hit. Now I can go ahead and execute phase. Now I'm 64. That hit for 64,000 crit. Now when I have the major breach applied, it usually hits around 72. Around 79 last night. I think I got a 79 hit on crit with everything. But that's one thing I want to go ahead and tell you. You want to pay attention with which bar is going to be your primary ultimate and what's going to be your secondary. For example, I can go ahead and go into skills and I can switch out the bear, which is, an option for me. So I can go ahead and go into the destruction staff, and then I can go ahead and lay down the destruction staff ultimate. Keep in mind, if I'm going to be using destruction staff abilities have to be applied on that bar. When I switch out to my dual bar, then I can go ahead and put in either a class ability, right? So I can use the internal guardian. I can use the growth, which I would probably want to. I can use the northern storm. Now the northern storm is great because even though it doesn't deliver as much damage that some of the ultimates could, it increases the damage of my effects. So keep in mind, guys, that for example, my Deep Fisher currently is dealing 14,554. If I go ahead and apply this ability to it, now it's dealing a couple hundred more. But consequently enough speaking, you got to pay attention to passives, because with advanced species, I'm getting a 2% boost when I have the feral, the Eternal Guardian slotted. So I'm going to be looking at a couple hundred reduced. Is it worth? You have to ask yourself, which is worth it for your rotation? What are you going to use more frequently? Right? It's not always going to be the best solution to have the most damaging effect. Right? Sometimes it's not the best solution because it ineffectively affects your damage depending on the cost. The bear is an automatic. Once it's out there, I'm already having an applied damage that's consistently hitting. That's going to contribute to my overall damage output. But something like Meteor or, Destruction Staff Ultimate is going to yield more damage on hit. Of course, because of the bear's ultimate effect, after 25%, this hits harder for single target. So you have to ask yourself, AoE, single target, what you're going for. But derated effects, one second. Sorry. Very important, guys. Very, very, very important. You want to make sure you get those derated effects down. You want to be able to weave in properly and get that fluid. It's a timing thing. It's always in looking at your visual display and what you're seeing with the effects and when they end is key. I can't stress that enough. So the Blue Betty is a visual display, right? We can see it. That's a visual display. The wall has a visual effect. Add this. It pops. Hit. Reapply. Now weave. Reapply. I can hit my spam and then weave up. Alright. 1 second. So, once again, it's practice, practice, practice. Now, another thing on your finishers. A lot of people want to go ahead, I'll cover this real quick, and just hit their ultimate like I just did. That's a bad thing. Remember, you want to either use your inner light to go ahead prior to your ultimate, or you can use the degen or structured entropy, or another Mage Guild ability to grant that Mage Guild passive in power. The reason you want to do that, you want to go ahead and get this down, you want to get that in power, then you want to hit the ultimate. That's increasing ultimate by 20%. That's affecting it another 20% on top of the empower. So you're getting the major sorcery, and you're going to go ahead and get the empower. That's 40% increased damage to your ultimate. Make sure you hit that, proc them up before you drop the ultimate. It's imperative that you start getting that concept down. Don't go ahead and just automatically, like a stamina user, think you can just go ahead and hit it. Major Brutality, when it's applied, they'll just go ahead and cast it. Boom, hit, done. Hit the Major Brutality. Unless they're dropping a pot. Now, potion timing is very important too. So if I'm going to go ahead and dump down and I'm just going to go ahead and spam everything, I got to pay attention to my potions when they're really needed. I'm just trying to dump down real quick here. Good. Let me just... Now, usually about right there, I like to go ahead and hit. Reason being, it's not before the Magicka recovery, it's for the recovery boost. Even on trash pots, right? I'm getting that recovery boost. So when I'm timing a good potion, using the recovery potions in a timely manner, that also significantly reduces my weave time. So a lot of the times I'll go ahead and remember I got a 30-second global cooldown on my potion. So between my rotation, I want to go ahead, hit. I'm just playing around here, guys, but Blue Betty should have been first. Now I can weave up one attack, hit the potion, weave up. It's going to significantly reduce how many times I'm going to have to weave. I'm not going to have to weave frequently if I'm paying attention to my global cooldowns on my potion and when to pop them. So I always tell people, right when you start slowly getting around half on the first one, pop the potion. You have a 30-second cooldown. You can go ahead and reapply that. It usually gives you about 2 heavy attacks between the rotation before the global cooldown resets. So that's a pretty good key indicator. If everything's perfect and timed right, you can get 2 heavy attack, your full rotation in, 2 heavy attacks, pop a potion. You get full rotation in, 2 heavy attacks, pop a potion. So it's just something you want to practice. It can be finicky, it can be frustrating. Getting rotation down isn't easy. Majority of your DPS, half of your DPS isn't derived from sets. I see players go ahead, copy multiple builds, and the build is solid. The problem of it is where they're struggling is getting their rotation down. And you can lose a ton of damage if you're not paying attention to your rotation. Even the most skilled players will screw up in their rotation because due to mechanics. It's unavoidable. Do not beat yourself up about it. One person made a comment and said, what do I do about lag? That ineffectively hinders my performance as well, and I completely agree with that. But when you bump into a situation like that, you want to reset from where you know your rotation. Muscle memorization and getting accustomed to the buttons and the layout is going to be more detrimental for you in the long run. And like another poster posted yesterday, it's about practice. Practice. 1 second. The more you practice a rotation, the more fluent you're going to become at it, and the more your damage is going to increase. Now, pair your rotation with your sets, depending on what build you're going with, and you're going to have a lot more effective rotation. So, guys, that's the advice I would go ahead and give you. I hope this video helps some people. I see a couple comments. I am on the PS, so I can't see. I'll chop in real quick here and see if I can see what's going on. But, yeah, guys, to me, it is what it is. But, let's see. I'm going to pause that. Second time activates the bear execute. Yeah, it does. So when you go ahead and hit the bear, it hits the it does the same, but you don't want to do it prior. What I like to do with the bear, now let me say this, for example. The bear has a very cheap cost when you're going to go ahead and use it. It only costs 75 ultimate. Essentially, it's free to bring out the bear. It doesn't cost you anything. It's only 75 ultimate to actually use the bear's ultimate, but it deals significantly less damage, but I don't want to keep banking that. So as soon as it hits, I'll hit it, but then right around about the 35k mark, guess what I do? Bam! I go ahead and I hit it one time, and especially with the bigger bosses and vets, I can usually get 2 off, and I'm hitting like 79k. Watch this build video yesterday. The group was terrible, but it's called the Arctic Wraith build. This bear on the boss hit 79k. 79k as a finisher. Now, you got to take into consideration, more conventional finishers will yield more damage because the way it's applied. You can keep reapplying the finisher. But with the bear, it gets to swipe in the maul, and you're able to go ahead and continuously lay down your rotation as you're hitting its ultimate. It ineffectively doesn't hinder your rotation. It's pretty beast. It pun intended. So it is pretty beast. Now here's the problem with the bear. Now the bear will receive heals, right? It will. It can receive heals. But if the healer starts dipping, this bear will die easier than you will. The bear will drop. It has a 20k, but for some reason, it drops faster than you. And it can. So if there's a heal miss and that bear doesn't get it and it dies, the recast time on it is... it's a headache. The Halls of Fabrication, I think, is going to be the hardest part for the bear. The reason being, there's just certain mechanics that are unavoidable the way the bear lays out. The bear can switch if you switch targets. So I can go ahead and hit this thing, switch it. I can come over here, hit that, and the bear will run over there. Well, it's supposed to. Hey, Zosh, you might want to get this checked. It's supposed to go over here. And it's not. That could be a bug. Ideally, though, when you switch targets, the bear's supposed to switch. But the bear also can be a line of sight issue, guys. So one of the major things that I found out, and I had to go with the lightning staff. I tried going Frost and Inferno. Inferno was what I originally wanted to ideally go for with the Frost. I thought it would have been really cool. But the bear being in front of me made weaving next to impossible. Like, every time I would weave up, it was just getting in my way for some reason. So I had to like come in. But once I lock in on that lightning, I was able to do a full charge without having to worry about the bear getting kind of obstructing my view. It was being a pain in my ass. So the lightning staff on the bear, if you're going to use the bear, I would recommend the lightning staff just to due to targeting issues. But ideally, the Inferno staff would be pretty freaking kill with this build. But until they can maybe adjust the placement, I would recommend the lightning staff every day, all day. But yeah, guys, once again, players, keep in mind rotation, keep in mind your GCD on your potions and your heavy attacks. Once you get the rated effects down and you start layering your abilities, it becomes more fluent. It's all about practice, repetition, repetition, repetition. And this is the one thing I would tell you, the most damn thing I'm going to tell you. Don't bank on this for a parse. If you're getting your rotation down and you're trying to watch these other YouTubers and they're saying, oh, this is what I'm parsing on a target skeleton. Target dummies have never been accepted as an accurate parse. Why? It doesn't have a mechanic, right? I can sit here and spam on this all day long. But on the truth be told, I lose between 15 to 20% damage. That's even on perfect rotation on an encounter, right? Target skeletons are good for primarily one thing: practice, rotation. That's what they're good for. And when you see a damage increase, that means your rotation is becoming more fluent. That's what I would tell you. People are always asking me, do a parse. This is not metrics. This is an insult for what we call a parser. ZeniMax has stressed they will never have a group parser. I applaud them for that, because leaving a game where I was an elite dick, I banked on parsers. If you weren't a certain percentage on the parse, I kicked you from the guild. Not the raid, the guild. I was a raid guild. You had certain expectations to meet to be in my guild. Was it dick? Yes, it was. Was I a dick? Fuck yes, I was. But we never banked on target skeletons. We banked off metrics. But now, in this game, to be honest with you guys, you don't need it. This game is a lot more laid back than that, right? You're not in a trial for 6 hours. We used to be in raids for 6 hours. This is a tool. This is to help you. Please use it to your benefit. But don't get set on this being inaccurate, right? It will help you. It will dramatically help your performance. And that's what it is. So once again, guys, take it for what it's worth. Use it to your benefit. Practice your rotation. Get it down. And I promise you, you will be a better player. Thank you guys for watching today. If you have any questions or comments, post below. As always, have a nice day.